Hey there, Craig Harmon of Harmony Music Education. Today's video is going to walk you through some different and simple ways to practice. Now, one of the things that I run into, and I have run into over my years of teaching, is students who think that just playing the song through from beginning to end, maybe 2 or 3 or maybe even a few more times, is practicing. And you know what? I was one of those students who thought that too. But the reality is that's not really practicing. That's learning uncertainty, and it's reinforcing mistakes and hesitation. So today, since you can see I'm wearing my Astros 2017 championship polo shirt, with baseball season starting here very, very soon, actually next Thursday is when my Astros starts, I thought we would take a look at the song Take Me Out to the Ballgame, and I'll walk you through a little bit of how I approach learning a song. So the biggest thing as I'm starting off is I'm starting slowly, because slowly makes all the difference. So I'm going to focus just on the first page that you see on the screen right there. And as I do, one of the biggest things that I do even before my fingers touch a key is I'm looking at the music. Step 1 is to look at how many sharps or flats or any accidentals, that's sharps or flats that come in or natural signs that come in, are there in the music. So you see at the beginning, you have one sharp, and that is F sharp. Anytime there's one sharp, it's always going to be F sharp. So that tells me that every F in this piece is sharp. And then if I look at measure 9, you'll see that there's a D sharp in the right hand in the treble clef and a G sharp in the left hand in the bass clef. And then in measure 10, you'll notice that there's a natural sign, that's what that symbol is, in parentheses. What that's telling you is it's a reminder that, hey, once you get to the bar line, that measure line there, the rule is that you go back to regular notes. So it's not that that note that was sharp before is not sharp anymore. So it's back to that natural or normal note. Now, the other thing that I'm going to take a look at even before I start playing as well, not only sharps or flats, what's my key time signature? How many counts do I have in each measure? Well, sure enough, there's 3, because Take Me Out to the Ballgame is a waltz, because baseball is a dance. I won't unpack that in this video, maybe some other time. But you'll also notice that it's marked F, forte. Forte is the Italian word that means loud. And so this whole first page is loud because it's an exciting, joyous, take me out to the ball game, right? Now, before I start playing, I'm going to work on just one hand at a time. And as I do that, I'm going to go slow, and I'm also going to count out loud. So let me switch over here to my hands so you can see. And I'm going to start at the beginning. And I'm going to count 1, 2, and I start on count number 3 with my right hand. So it's going to go like this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so as I'm looking at this, you'll notice at the bottom of the page, right at that last measure, you see how there's a 2 up above that B, that last right hand note. The thing is, my thumb is on D. So I'm reaching, and you might have seen it in the video of me doing it here, that my thumb is on D. I'm reaching my second finger over. And that makes things a whole lot easier so that as you're moving around, because you have more than 5 notes that you're playing in this melody, but you only have 5 fingers to play it with, then you can make sure that that happens. Now, one of the things that I might notice if I'm practicing this, I go through it the first time very slowly, and I might notice that I didn't get all the way down in that first line. I didn't get all the way back down to the A. I played B, let's say, right? Okay, so if I made a mistake, that happens. Sometimes it could be just because you just had a mental freeze or your mind started to wander. The rule of thumb I've learned in practicing is if you make a mistake once, it happens. If it happens twice, well, that might be something to really pay attention to. If it happens 3 times, then definitely mark something there so that you know what to do, so that you have a visual clue. Now, I'll say this. I'm a big fan of looking at and writing in help. I don't write in help for everything, but at least having something there as just kind of here and there, some assists, is a big, big help and a big deal. So I'll notice here as I'm looking at this that my thumb is kind of moving around. So I'm playing A there at the first, B and A in the first line. Second line is back to B. Third line's pretty much the same, right? And then there's that, what I was talking about earlier, of reaching your second finger over. Okay, now I'm going to go to my left hand. So left hand, just for this first page, is going to look at this. So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now, the thing here for my left hand, for the bass clef, is there's a little bit of moving around going on, right? I noticed that second measure, that left hand chord, is B on the bottom and G on the top. That's an interval of a sixth. That's a little bit bigger than what our hand normally sits on the piano. Our hand in a normal hand position basically spans about 5 notes. This is just a little bit bigger than that, so you do have to move your pinky down just a little bit. Then you'll notice that when you're looking at measure 9, you have that G sharp and B on the bottom. Moving up then to A on the top and B on the bottom with the same fingering. So all you're doing is just moving those 2 fingers up 1/2 step. And then the spot that I would run into as possibly a little bit of a challenge is measure 13, that last line. The first measure, it's A on the bottom and G on the top. That's a lot of big stretch there. That's a 7th. And so it's not quite an octave, it's 1 step lower, but it's a big stretch. And so if I'm practicing that, I don't quite always get to there, I'm going to isolate that section and really focus in on that. So what I might want to do, for example, if I'm having trouble with that, is I'm going to start 2 measures before that spot. So this is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now I'm going to repeat it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I do that a few times until I really get it good and comfortable and really where I feel like I need to get it to be. So now let's go to the second page of the song, and you're going to see that it's basically a lot like the beginning to start with. And this is one of the things I focus in on with my students, is really diving into patterns. That when you're looking for patterns, they're all over the place. And so you see that, right? So if I start again with my right hand at the top of the page, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now that one's not super hard, but I will show you that in the middle line there, second line, where you have the shame and then 4, it's the same note again, but you're walking up to it, so you have your thumb starting on A. Let me switch so you can see what I'm doing here. It's going to be this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So I switched my finger. Now this is something that happens quite a bunch when you have a repeated note. It's a great place to reset your hand if you need to. So it's 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So I'm resetting my hand. Now that can be a spot where I might circle that 3 up above the note so that I'm reminding myself that I'm going to my third finger. And I might practice that spot right there. Right? I'll do that a few times, and that's going to be a big, big help. The rest of it is pretty simple and straightforward. So the left hand at that same spot is going to be this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Oh, now here's a bunch of stuff going on, right? The thing about this is when you get to, let me go back over here to the music so you can see, the second line, right? So you got the C and G, then the G moves up to G sharp, and then moves up to A. So all that's going to be hopping your thumb from the G to the G sharp to the A. And then you've got your 1, 2, so you're moving your pinky up to C sharp, and then to your G sharp and B, and then measure 29 moves down to A and G, and then D and F sharp. And then the last one is where I've got a big stretch. G, D, and then down an octave to the G. So let me show you so you can see that's a spot where I'm really going to isolate and focus because there's a lot of moving around. And anytime I have to move around or move my hand, that's the spot where I might hit a wrong note or two. Or maybe hit the notes I'm not wanting to, which would also be a mistake. So if I'm starting right there at shame, it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Now watch how I spread my hand. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So you can see how when I do that, I make my hand spread out farther. Now, if you're not able to do that, if your hand's just a little bit smaller and you can't quite reach, you can do this. Right? You can make that a little bit shorter if you have to. So the thing about this is, there's a couple different ways that I would, if it was me, and I mean, this really isn't a super hard piece for me to play, but if there was something that was a little bit more complicated that I was working on, I would isolate those different sections and I'd really focus in on that. So starting off slow, that's the biggest step in learning because you're doing something that's just a little bit different. Well, I mean, a lot different because our fingers don't usually do this that much. And so you're getting yourself used to and really building up that skill of that muscle memory for your fingers. The other thing that I would do is, like I just did, isolate each hand by itself. Because when we do that, it gives our brain a lot more focus power on just that one thing. The other thing I'll do is I'll take it apart in different chunks. And I work on this with students all the time. Instead of starting at the beginning and going all the way to the end, especially in a longer piece, that can seem very daunting. Break it up into smaller chunks because the reality is it's probably going to be repeated somewhere else along the way. And when you do that, now all of a sudden you've got these little bite-sized chunks that kind of repeat, and then you can see the patterns as well. A few other tricks that I've learned throughout all my years of practicing is to start at the end. Because, well, most of the time, since we start at the beginning, the end is usually the part that maybe sometimes doesn't always get the most attention paid to it. And it's really important how we start and how we end a song. Now, obviously, the entire thing is the most important thing, of course. But a lot of times what's most memorable is how we begin, or most importantly, how we end a song. And so if you start at the end and work your way backward. Now, I'm not talking about starting at the last measure and then playing it backward. I'm saying start at the last 4 measures and then back out to 6 or 8 and then back out even farther and work on just that little bit and put it together backward instead of starting at the beginning. It's a great tool, especially when the piece gets a little bit more complicated throughout, that can really help you to become more confident and competent as playing this. And that's the thing, is that what we want is we want to be confident as well as competent in playing. So I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to play, and I might even just throw in a little singing here for you, of Take Me Out to the Ball Game, this arrangement right here by Jennifer Eklund, and that's from the Piano Pronto Movement 2 book. That's the series that I use to teach out of. Not that I just play and sing it for you. Here we go. Take me out to the ball game. Take me out with the crowd. Buy me some peanuts and Cracker Jack. I don't care if I ever get back. Let me root for the Astros. If they don't win, it's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game. Thanks for checking out today's video. Go Astros. And I hope that you enjoy this opportunity to help yourself get better at practicing.